Hello and welcome back to downtown Baghdad. Well, certainly is out there. It's all exploding and I don't really know what's going on. Welcome back to AATV Live. I'm your host, Tom Anvil Hibberd, and today we're going to talk all about weekend airsoft events. We're not specifically talking about any one type, but just really talking about when you go away and you spend overnight at your airsoft site location playing your game. So the normal caveats, not normal caveats, because it is extremely loud out there. You may hear some bangs. I may get called away to look after my dog because she is a bit scared. My partner's currently giving her cuddles. And one of our guests also has another animal, which is somewhat distressed by fireworks, which we'll probably get into at some point indeed. So let's introduce our guests tonight, two regulars of the channel. We have Mr. Ben Webb and Mr. Gadge, Gareth Harvey. How are you doing?
Good. I'm really good.
Oh, good. I can actually hear you. Fantastic. I was like, oh my God, it's all exploded.
Yeah, I'm really good. It's all fine. Apart from it being annual Bell Ends Make Noise Day, it's fine.
I'm all good. It's kind of.
Great. So I'm sounding really bad. I don't really know what to do about that. I'm afraid I've got a quality mic and a good connection, so something's going hideously wrong at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I think we've got some fairly gross connection issues, haven't we? All round.
Is that better, Angelo? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we've already had some internet connection issues. Let me turn my mic down a bit. It might be peaking, and then that might be a bit better. Okay, how's that? Let me know how that is, and we'll adjust as we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about weekend airsoft events. Before we get on to that, let's ask the... thanks, guys. That's brilliant. Let's ask our normal AATV Live question, which is, what's in your cup?
Do you want to go first, Gadge?
Yeah, go on then. I'm being kind of pikey again with Brewdog's Hazy Jane. Don't know if you can see that.
It's a bit hazy, actually, mate.
There you go. It's not bad for a canned beer. It'll do the job.
Yeah, that's not that pikey, to be honest. Pretty upper class.
It's not your average Fosters or anything, is it?
No.
Ben, what are you on tonight?
Well, if Gadge's choice is pikey, I'm even worse because I've gone for Lidl's premix gin and tonic to start with, and then a few of Lidl's finest steam beer things.
Are they really quite good?
They're actually quite tasty, but yeah, they're from Lidl. Great place, Lidl.
It's a really good beer, actually, and some good whiskey.
I've got a Brewdog advent calendar, but Ben's challenged me. He reckons it'll be gone by middle of November.
Yep.
There's 24 slots and there's 24 hours in a day. I'm just saying.
Baden Powell is having tea NATO style.
Is that sitting on a plastic tub?
So I have Totally Brewed Nana Jangles hazelnut and chocolate stout, which is very fine. Like a lot of businesses, they've had to shut their doors. So I went and did a click and collect earlier and picked up my order from the pub, which was
nice.
Which was really nice. So really, really good. Bottle of JD, some tea NATO style. Orange and Matt's having orange and pineapple cordial as usual.
Some people are not fucking around, are they? Bottle of JD.
Well, mate, Angelo is on the special brew.
Special brew.
Go on.
Any other... I mean, the fireworks. Let's talk about fireworks for a little bit while people join. Does my head in. I never really used to until I started owning a dog. Well, I'm not. I think the dog tells me what to do most of the time. But yeah, we've got 3 greyhounds, 2 of which don't really care, one of which is absolutely terrified, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I think for me, Tom, I didn't mind when I was younger, and it was like bonfire night, the Saturday before or after bonfire night, and maybe New Year's Eve. But now it seems to start round about middle of October and end round about New Year's Day, and it's just like, pick a bloody day, guys. You know?
And we were saying earlier, actually, if there was like a time period, we could stick the dogs in a car and just go for a drive, and that would be like, then we'd kind of almost be done with it, and then we wouldn't have to worry about it too much. But yeah, as you say, Gadge, it just goes on way too long. Maybe I'm just getting way too old, but I don't. Seeing a shaking, shivering greyhound is just not fun.
I must be getting too old because every bang I hear, I think, well, that was a fiver, that was a fiver, that was a fiver, that was a fiver.
Angelo says his cat won't stop shaking either.
Calling their hits. Nobody's doing their hits at all. So it's just £5 after £5 getting.
I have to say, Ben, I mean, once you've been and seen a British Army firepower demo and you've been next to AS-90 assault guns firing a battery off, all these fireworks just sound wank.
Yeah, I know.
To be honest.
They're not really worth it, are they? I've never really liked the whole organised fun side of it. So, yeah, you can stick your fireworks up your hoop.
Right. So enough of hooping. Let's get on to a bit more chitty chat. So I just want to point out that we have AATV particularly, we have a Patreon scheme. If you want to help the channel stay as independent as possible, please head over to patreon.com AATV and you can join. Just helps us do independent reviews, independent testing, and we don't have to worry about trying to get hold of kit and gear and selling our soul. We can stay as independent as possible. Right, enough of the advert. So let's get back to weekenders. Now, I've called it a weekender because when I started playing, back when everything was made of wood, we didn't have mil sims and battle sims and themed events. We only had weekenders, and that's what we called them. We went away to a weekender, and we're using this term to fully encompass any event where you go away and effectively you stay the night and then you play again the next day, or you play through the night, and that's a weekender. So that may be what you'd call a mil sim or a film sim or a LARP event or immersive event or any sort of thing like that. And we wanted to kind of bring together some of our experiences and some of our mistakes and just have a chat, plus have a chat with you guys about what you think, but just try and help out people starting off on that journey about what to do, what not to do, and what kind of stuff to take. So let's start off, guys, with just briefly outline some of your experience in Airsoft. So if people come to this, let's call it a podcast, without having met us before, what have you guys been up to? Just very briefly. Ben, would you like to lead off? Oh, Gadge will start. Okay, go for it.
Okay. So, I mean, with you, Tom, I went to some Sterling weekenders in the early days of Airsoft, around about 2002, 3 maybe. And then when World War II Airsoft started kicking off, I became an event organiser. So my sort of like view of weekenders just flipped over completely. So it wasn't just turning up, it was actually making sure that 40, 50, 60 people had a good time. So I probably organise more events these days than I've actually been to. So for me, weekenders are probably more stressful than they are when you go to one.
Yeah, I think we kind of lived a bit of a parallel life with those as well, didn't we? Especially in our experience of Airsoft and what we were doing for work at the time. So yeah, I jumped over and started helping organise and run weekend-long events. Not going to say mil sims, definitely distinction between a mil sim and a weekend-long event. But yeah, I think I've easily been part of the organisational team for as many events as I have attended as a player. So yeah, kind of experience both ends of the stick and have a slightly different experience from both ends of it as well. So look forward to talking about that in a bit.
Great stuff. So I think for our first topic, what I want to talk about is what to do before you even get there. So things like what documents, how do you go about working out what you should take, stuff like that. So I mean, you guys have got very
yeah.
Go for it, Gadge.
Yeah, that's critical, Tom. I mean, one thing that used to quite frustrate me as an organizer is you get people turning up to events and they hadn't even read the background for the event. They didn't turn up with the right mindset for it. They were actually just going for what they thought was a long open day. And I think if you're going to go to an event, check it's right for you. I mean, it might be an event where you're expected to be tasked to spend hours on an OP and it's not all about trigger time. And if you go there wanting constant action, you'll be frustrated. Conversely, it might be an event that actually revolves around constant battles and rapid regens. And if you want to go and do recce and be sneaky and patrol and actually just being herded into the red team or the blue team all day, you'll be equally as frustrated. And a lot of times when people have a bad day at events, it's because they went to the wrong event, to be honest. You get a lot of people who turn up and go, oh, this is rubbish because I haven't shot anyone, or this is rubbish because, there aren't objectives or there isn't any role play or whatever. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, most good organisers will put a rule set up in advance and let you know exactly what you should expect.
Oh, yeah. I mean, from my perspective, I totally agree with you there, Gadge. But from my perspective, take certain things and take stuff on board. Read the game brief, read the previous game brief if you can get hold of it, learn what to expect and get yourself familiarised with how the games run, because forewarned is forearmed. You might not even like it, And when you get there, it's a long time to be sitting around not really enjoying yourself. We'll move on to that in a bit, I would have thought. But for me, if the organizer asks you to bring along a signed disclaimer or anything like that, or asks you to bring along cash, do that, because nobody likes it when you sit there, and often these weekend events aren't run at your average airsoft site. They're run at a special event site. You might not have a hard room to be doing all your admin and stuff in. So if they say, can you sign a disclaimer and bring it with your signature on it, and can you bring the right money, put a bit of effort in to do that, because it stops the weekend getting off to a sour start by standing in a queue waiting for some numpty at the front to fill his name in and ask what his mum's phone number in so as he can put his next of kin on and things like that.
Yeah. It can even be more serious than that, Ben. So I remember chatting to Tom about this earlier. And I was one World War II event a friend of mine ran, and one guy had breathing problems in his sleep, and actually stopped breathing without a sort of like a breathing machine that actually plugged into the mains. And he turned up to an event in the middle of nowhere expecting the audience to have run power on, but didn't tell them in advance. So like that organizer isn't psychic, and if you need that to stay alive, it's kind of your duty to tell the organizer in advance that you need it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to accept the fact that these airsoft games are airsoft games. You're not going to be in a hotel if you want the experience of staying there for the weekend. You're going to be probably roughing it to some degree. You might be able to put a tent up inside a building, Angelo, or you might be able to bed down in some actually plumbed in beds with actual porcelain facilities. But most of the time, these facilities are in kind of high demand, and it will be first come, first served. I know some of the England versus Scotland games, the certain areas of accommodation are hotly contested on the Catterick site, and the first people that get there either pay a little bit extra to stay with some porcelain facilities and be able to keep themselves clean and tidy like that, and stay in a relatively warm, almost homely kind of room.
Sounds like that posh camping at festivals, doesn't it?
Oh, it's nowhere near that nice. I mean, you've probably been to Catterick. Some of the rooms have got some really dubious stains on the walls and ceilings, and some really interesting acrobatics must happen when people are on those top bunks to get stuff into the places they get them. But then you've got the second tier camping there, which is in the drafty barn, which has got big old gaps in it. And somebody's just mentioned the barn in the comments just there. Then you've got other events where you might have some really premium camping spots, but then everybody else might have to go and rough it on a soggy field. So you need to know what you're getting into. You definitely need to know.
I think that's a really important point. Something I was actually going to stress again, but thanks for bringing it up. I think understanding the facilities you're going to be staying in, what there's there, and then what you need to bring is pretty fundamental. You get to some events, and as you say, you've got cover, you've got power, you've got porcelain toilets. Even fine, they might not be brilliant, but you've got somewhere to sit down. You've got lights, you've got power, you've got power switches. You go to other events, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
You have to bring on everything. There might be, if you're lucky, there's a portaloo. I've been to events where there's nothing. You have to go on a shovel recce.
Yeah. I mean, some events you're lucky if there's, let's say you're lucky, there's not running water, so everything has to be in a bottle.
Yeah.
So you can't take anything for granted. Always check beforehand.
Okay, so I think the conclusion there is make sure you actually read everything.
Yeah.
Actually understand everything.
And stick to the guidelines that people give you. If they do say, please fill out your forms ahead of time, just do it. Don't be the badass that turns up, I don't need to fill out this. You just end up making things take longer, and you get to spend less time having fun.
And check out the forums or the Facebook groups for that event beforehand, because quite often you can talk to people who've been to the event before and said, look, you're going to need to bring this. And equally, you can kind of make some of those connections with people on your side and team before you even get there. Yeah. Which can help loads to be, rather than being that guy on his own who doesn't really know anyone and trying to make friends during the middle of an airsoft battle, you can actually make those connections early on.
Yeah. So I'll bring the water, you bring the bacon. So you can buy a multi-pack and save a few quid, and that kind of thing makes a lot of sense.
Glenn Rickwood's brought up an interesting point. Some airsoft organisers will put out a kit list, and they'll have you must bring this stuff. Otherwise you'll be in a real shit state.
I don't think don't want to jump too far ahead with the topics that we've got, but we've gone down this route of take everything you need. Likewise, if they say don't take something, there's probably a reason. So if they say don't light a fire, you're probably not allowed to set up a raging great barbecue. So don't get the ump if you've bought some sort of what they call the Argentinian style meat roasting cross things and like some elaborate barbecue that you imported from Texas. You know, if they say you can't have a fire, they're probably not going to let you set fire to that in the middle of the campsite. So don't get the piss on when they say we said no fires. You know, you're not going to be able to cook on that.
Yeah. I guess bear in mind, I'm sure we'll pick this up later, but I think cooking facilities is really important, and we'll talk about that in the future. But just find out what the cooking facility. There probably will be none. There may be a burger van. There may be local shops. You may be on your Todd. Bear that in mind, and we'll come on to that a bit later, I'm sure. The only other thing I would like to bring up is access to some sites does demand you have ID, and I've heard people being turned away because they've just basically turned up with a bag full of cash. And if you're trying to get onto some military sites without any ID, you can be in a bit of a shit state.
Oh yes.
Right. Okay. Also, work out where you're going.
For sure.
Some of these places, or take a good navigator, Gadge.
Yeah,
Hey.
all right. I'm rubbish at remembering routes. Okay, I admit.
Oh my God, I've got a good anecdote about this.
Ah,
A good anecdote. So
yes, I'm
some time ago, ironically, actually, I think it was 2016. There was an AI 500 event at Blunderston Prison called AI 500 Lockdown. I think we called the event, which is very, very appropriate. So Blunderston Prison is a decommissioned prison, and it was really cool actually because it was a prison that one of the Krays was at leisure in for some period of time, but it was due to be knocked down, and we managed to get hold of the prison for a period of time. I'm sure there might be a couple of people that went to the event in the comments feeds. Great prison, but it's in Blunderston, which is like right on the far east coast of Norfolk. I think it's in Lowestoft.
Oh Jesus, that's a mare to get to.
So it's not great to get to, but it's called Blunderston Prison and it's in Blunderston. However, somebody that will remain nameless, just to save their dignity, managed to actually turn up to a prison that was about 25 miles round the corner along the coast and rocked up and was like, "Oh, I'm here for the game," and there's like proper gate guards and stuff like that. "Yeah, I'm here for the game. Can you let me in?" And they were like, "You best drive through." And obviously they're a little bit concerned about this guy that's got like camo kit on and things like that. So he ends up spending about an hour and a half there trying to explain to them exactly what he's doing, that he's not there to try and break somebody out of the prison in some sort of game. And he ends up rocking up about an hour and a half late to the in time at Blunderston Prison, and has this great story to tell us about how he accidentally fucked off to the wrong prison.
Actually
and
went to
tried
prison
to get in. But, make sure you know where you're going.
Wasn't there a guy at Pilgrim Bandits, like 2018, that went to completely the wrong location as well?
Just went to a different game.
Okay, so I think that's stuff to do before you get there. Again, in conclusion, read everything. And if you can, as Ben's point was really nice, actually, if the organisers have put out other games, read the previous stuff because it might give you a better idea of what you're getting yourself into. Some event organisers have a variety of different games. I know Sterling do a variety of different, not levels, but different difficulties for the player. Some of them are quite simple. Some of them are really quite involved. Some involve humping around hills for 2 days, which is not for the faint-hearted. Okay, so we've covered what before you get there. Let's talk about kit. Now, when I say kit, what I mean is stuff that's on the body or you're carrying yourself.
You mean airsoft kit?
Airsoft kit.
Yeah, not the camping kit.
Not a camp. So that, we're going to call that gear today.
Yeah.
But so we're talking about airsoft kit, the stuff that you wear and carry. So let's have a little bit of a chat about that.
Ooh. I've got a lot to say about this.
Well then, Ben, would you like to lead us off?
I apologise that I'll have a lot to say about this. So I wrote a few features about it back in the day, and I spent quite a lot of time thinking about it myself. And a lot of people confused, and it was probably a few years ago now that the word milsim started really getting proliferate through the airsoft community, and it was cool to call everything a milsim. And there's this slightly confused approach to milsims, so things that were called milsims would be lots of people rocking up, and the most defining factor for some of a milsim was that you were all wearing the right outfits and the right uniforms and the right kit, which I would probably say was closer to a reenactment than a milsim. But a lot of these guys were hampering themselves and their military simulation experience by rocking up to some woodland site in the pissing rain in a load of hot weather desert kit. So in my eyes, yeah, that's great. You're dressed like a military unit, but what you're not going to do is milsim. You're not going to have a military experience because you're not going to be able to cope with what you're going to do. You're not going to have taken the right stuff. You're going to be uncomfortable. You probably look good for about 10 minutes until you realise that you're piss wet through and freezing cold, or a couple of hours at best. And when the sun goes down, it gets really, really cold, and then everything sucks. So I've always thought there's two different approaches to this, like copying somebody else's kit that you've seen that might be relevant in the time. And I've always wondered, is it more milsim to actually select the kit that you want to use that suits you best, that you know is used in that environment? Is that more soldierly to do rather than copy somebody else's kit that might not even work for you, really, because the guy you're copying's 6'10" and 250 pounds, and you're 5'4" and 78 pounds? You never really know. So this is like the paradox in milsim for me. I don't know how you feel about it, guys.
I think you can expand on that as well, Ben. So what works for a 4 or 5 hours of actual active game time at an open day isn't going to work when you're trying to do 16 hours over a weekend going up and down hills or something. So if you're used to doing a direct action kit with big plate carriers, heavy helmet, all that sort of stuff, it's great if you can have half-hour breaks between things. But if you've got to all of a sudden do effectively a navigation exercise in your kit, you could end up having to drop it and ditch it because you can't carry it and you're not used to it. Some people are hyper fit, they can do it. I know I'd pass out.
Well, I mean, even the best trained, best equipped people in the world choose not to take armor plates into areas they don't really need armor plates because they can do without them. And why carry it around when you're not going to need it? I know it sounds really, really corny, but what do they say? Like ounces equals pounds, pounds equals pain, which is a really corny thing to say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But you can carry around something and think, even if you think, that's a bit heavy now, I can carry it. Yeah, I can carry it. Give it 3 hours and it's going to be like an anvil.
Translate to gun accessories, though, Ben. The things that you put on your gun for an open day because they look cool. Like I did one weekender with Tom ages ago at Stirling, and my old G36 had every bit of 20mm rail had something on it. I had lasers and flashlights and all sorts. 5 hours in, I realised that actually if I stripped it down to just the basic rifle, I was carrying a kilogram less, and it was loads more effective.
There's so much shit on that thing.
And half the shit that was stuck to it probably got a bit damp whilst you were walking around.
Yeah.
And stopped working anyway, because back in the day we weren't all using mil spec properly sealed kit and things like that. And it stopped working anyway. So you're just carrying around a load of dead weight, and you're probably not going to need a red and green laser. So why bother having that stuck?
Well, knowing Gadge, you probably didn't have any batteries that worked anyway.
No, I didn't. They were just there to look, mate.
Exactly. Different things. That's another point actually. Is the what I was saying about dressing up as the right guy when it comes to milsim stuff. You're much better off. I would rather see somebody run around with a decent blue technical windbreaker and some Gore-Tex trousers and some decent walking boots with a chest rig on than somebody dressed up in a load of stuff that looked really cool but was made in China out of non-technical, terrible materials that didn't fit right and were going to explode around his crotch every time he crouched down.
Yeah, agreed.
Is it more milsim to simply wear decent kit or getting kitted up in your best photo shoot gear?
I mean, if you look at that, a recent event, was it the Blue Fox event where some of the guys turned up in just Ubacs and it shat it down with rain, and they didn't bring any waterproofs or warm kit with them at all, and totally unprepared for it and had a miserable time because they were freezing and cold.
You gonna die. That's game over.
Cotton kills on the hills and all that. So I think it's important to understand the environment you're operating in, understand the weather. What's the weather like? Even then, still take warm layers and lightweight Gore-Tex if you can. Yeah. If you've got it. It's just.
Sorry, Tom. Just to interrupt. Those lads that turned up to that, as somebody that's organising events, those lads that turned up just wearing their Under Armour shirts and stuff, I would rather them not turn up with a gun and turn up with decent outdoor kit, I'd rather lend them a gun than see somebody rock up with inadequate equipment like that. I would laugh at them less for turning up without a gun.
Okay, so let's expand on this, because I think that's a really interesting point. What do we think is the kind of sensible minimum kit in terms of just stuff, clothes that you should take to any sort of weekender, really, no matter what the weather?
Mm-hmm.
What should you take just in case?
You can go first, Gadge.
Okay, well, I think you need to take things you can adapt with. So, your normal open day, you don't mind if you get wet, so you can take that one outfit. I think some sort of waterproof is essential. Whether that's a Gore-Tex jacket or a poncho or whatever it's going to be, you know, it could even be a World War II Russian rain cape, something to keep you out of an absolute storm if it happens. Something that's soft and warm and light to carry, like a snug pack, like an army snug pack type jacket, you know, the puffer jacket things.
Cheap.
Yeah, you want spare socks because they are going to get wet. Even if you've got Gore-Tex ones, you're going to sweat in them.
Yeah.
Like as Ben said as well, you want to make sure that any clothes you've got, and we said this before the chat, I think, are tested. You don't want to go with something you've never used before and then find out that it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah. No, we were just doing our kind of pre-stream run through some of the ideas that we wanted to talk to, although this is very ad hoc and not particularly planned. But like my golden rule, and I think a few people have already acknowledged it in the comments already, is make sure you've used things before you rock up to try and use them for the whole weekend. Because, you know, you might have put them on in the house and walked around for half an hour, but, you know, you've not worn them for 12 hours, 24 hours straight, and they might not fit you that well. Or, you know, boots particularly, don't wear your brand new boots that you've never really worn before because they might not fit you that well, or, you know, they might just be a bit shit, but you'll only find out after a little bit of time.
Hell on earth.
It will completely ruin your weekend. I mean, the amount of guys I've seen absolutely pissed off, dragging their gun around behind them because something's gone wrong or they're having a terrible time, and it's just it's ruining your entire weekend. And you spend quite a lot of money going to these things, and you know you don't want to throw it down the drain, do you?
No, I mean, I think to summarise what I'd say then with the adaptable things, you've got to remember that in an open day, you're pretty much in control of what happens. At a weekender, the variables are massive. So you might be really, really active and overheating at one point in a really intense bit of the game. Then you might be doing nothing for 2 hours standing on a hillside, depending on the nature of the game. And if you're standing on that hillside in the clothes you've been getting hot and sweaty and storming that building, you've got no jacket to put on, or you know nothing to wipe yourself down with, like a sweat rag or something like that, you're going to be uncomfortable. And if you're uncomfortable, you're not going to enjoy yourself.
Exactly. Have we moved beyond kit, Tom, or are we now talking
we're still on kit. I think so there's a few bits of boots you already touched on. Boots for me is like one of the number one. If your boots are shit, your feet are shit, and if your feet are shit, you can't play. Mm-hmm. You know, simple as that.
You can't drive home the next day either.
Yeah. You're completely screwed. Lots of people in the comments have brought up good socks. I totally agree. I use. I think Philomene did a video ages ago, and my top two things were basically socks and boots. There's iPro. Angelo's brought up. Remember to slip your eye protection on if it's a 24-hour event and your fob or digs are in play. Also have spare iPro. And as Angelo points out, iPro you can sleep in may not be the same iPro that you play in.
Yeah, you want one with a headband so it doesn't roll off and you're tossing and turning in your sleep or whatever in your sleeping bag, you know.
Yeah. I mean, expanding on socks. I mean, I always take hell loads of socks because, I mean, I've always said if I was rich enough, apparently Eddie Murphy does this, but apparently if I were rich enough, I would wear a brand new pair of socks every day because I love putting a new fresh pair of socks on. And when you're at a long event, actually that little morale boost is incredible.
Yeah.
It's really good. Another story I might have told, but at a long event I did once at Stanta when it got really, really cold. We went out and immediately into game on. We ended up mooching around in a blizzard for 8 hours. So you can imagine we got quite damp and quite cold. And went back after the first 8 hours. We started at midnight on a Friday, did 8 hours, went to get our heads down for a little bit in our kind of accommodation, which was an ISO container, which was temporarily converted to a fridge. I took all my kit off completely, which is good drills basically. Don't sleep with all your clothes on because you've got nothing to put on to warm yourself up when you get out your sleeping bag. Usually a great thing to do is stuff all your stuff under your sleeping bag or even in your sleeping bag. I did that with some items, but completely forgot my soggy trousers because they were wet. And when I woke up in the morning after about 2 hours of sleep to some guy running around screaming, banging on the wall, yelling "stand to" at us just as it was getting light, I pulled my trousers on and I found the ankle cuffs were actually frozen, like frozen stiff. At that point, I nearly told the guy to stuff his game up his ass. I was going home. I was that emotional. But it turned out to be one of the best games I've ever been to. But that level of preparation, spare items, remember to keep track of what's going on. I don't imagine many people will go to games where your clothes will actually freeze whilst you're not wearing them. But it was a horrible experience.
I think, Ben, it brings up redundancies, and we were going to touch upon that.
So, yeah, let's do that.
We've talked about socks being a redundancy. It's a really common sense one. Mm-hmm. People mention batteries, loads of batteries. If you think you're going to need 3 batteries for the weekender, take 6.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you're going on your own, I always take a backup gun. If you go in as a pair, take 1 backup gun between you. Mm-hmm. Because every time I've not done that, like the recent weekender Tom and I went to, my gun had a motor failure. Halfway through right at the end of day 1 actually, and it wasn't too big an issue because it was like I was pretty much done gaming by then. And I could use my pistol for a little bit, but if I'd have been sensible and brought a backup gun, it wouldn't have been a problem at all. But I thought, do you know what, it's a reliable gun, it's never failed on me in 2 years, I'll trust it.
Can I press the rewind button again actually and go back to things not to do and things to do before the event?
Go for it.
Can I suggest things not to do are completely upgrade your gun, take it apart, and put it together again? Because it's a crap time to do it. I've done it before, and I will say, and this is when it comes into guns again, redundancy of stuff. I remember getting to a game at Cope Hill. I'd got my, at the time, best impression of an L119 ever that I'd ever made, kitted up, and I shot about 8 rounds through the gun. And it started losing velocity, and then all of a sudden I actually shot the inner barrel out of the outer barrel. I was like, well, something's wrong with this lovely TM recoil that I've just built and upgraded. What the hell's gone wrong? And it turns out that I forgot to put the C-clip on the barrel. Okay. And obviously I'm at a weekend event and I don't have any C-clips to put on the barrel, so that's that gun out of commission. I'd spent ages getting this loadout that I really wanted to wear right with this gun that really, really suited me. And I couldn't use it at all because after less than a mag, I'd shot my inner barrel out of it through my own stupid fault. And I ended up having to borrow my mate Nick's gun for the entire weekend, which shot really, really nicely and was a TM recoil as well, so we could use all the same magazines. However, I kind of eroded my fun a little bit there by deciding to upgrade my gun the night before the weekend game. And, hey,
got a better one.
I was screwed.
So, Gadge was there actually, Sandy Bridge 2004. This is the North Korean Sterling game. And our friends Gucci and Matt decided to upgrade Matt's gun in the tank barn at Senny Bridge the night before the game.
Because it needed upgrading.
They might have had a few Stellas.
Some of them were in the gun.
They managed to, when they opened the gearbox, the spring guide flew across the tank barn and nailed some guy who was sleeping in the forehead. He wasn't best pleased, and they lost the gearbox pin, and they ended up having to put a nail through it. It was
Gucci.
Shall we move on?
Gucci was a legend in airsoft. Trust me.
Shall we move on? Right. Should we do gear?
Yeah.
So camping, living. So it's a sleep kit, shelter, and potentially comfy kit as well. So let's have a bit of a chat about that. And this goes back to what we said earlier about understanding the environment you're going to be playing in and where you're going to be sleeping.
Yeah, and the nature of the game. I mean, for example, some games, as Angelo's mentioned, the sleeping area is in game. So you might not have the luxury of putting up a tent. It might be sleeping under a tarp, having a sleeping bag so you can move if you're bumped. You might have the opportunity of putting up a tent in a room, as we mentioned before, because it's a bit of a minging old knackered prison or whatever.
I've been in that room, actually, Angelo. I would not sleep directly on that floor, so I'm with you.
But the point being is, essentially, you need to work out how much cover and protection there is in your downtime and how much you need to take with you. And again, that's all about looking at the brief, looking at the site, talking to people, because otherwise you end up taking stuff you don't need quite often. I've taken tents and sleeping bags and roll mats and turned up, and actually there's been sort of like scout hut type accommodation.
Yeah.
So you don't need it.
I agree with that. There's, what was the saying? It's better to have and not need than need and not have.
Yeah.
However, there is a point where that becomes ridiculous. And I've seen people take so much stuff to weekend games that they've spent probably as much time carting this crap in and out of a van and getting it all set up than they have had playing airsoft. And that's cool if you want to go to the weekend event and you want to act as the campsite crew. I mean, I know a couple of guys, especially the guys from Manx Airsoft over in Isle of Man, and they used to come over to a few events. And honestly, they did some awesome stuff, and they used to have a guy manning the campsite nearly the entire weekend through. And he used to put on a huge pot of chili for them on a big gas burner in this great giant stainless steel tub. And it was amazing because like you walk back to the campsite and it was like, damn, someone's got some really nice chow on. And they used to like share it out, and it was beautiful, absolutely great, really kept the vibe going. But they had a guy standing there manning the campsite all the way.
That's pretty milsim, isn't it? You could bring in a cook.
Yeah,
George,
it was
that's actually, it does bring up an issue we talked about before. Obviously, I think Tom and I talked about it a week or so ago, and it's what you actually want from that weekender as well. So for some people, they actually want that airsoft shooting experience. For other people, they want that camaraderie of actually camping with their mates while wearing a bit of kit, cooking that chili, and it's a valid reason to go to a weekender. I mean, with a lot of the World War II and Vietnam scene, I used to really enjoy seeing guys from all over the country that I'd see 3 or 4 times a year. We'd play some airsoft, and then we'd have a bit of a drink together, talk about kit, maybe buy and sell a bit of kit, that sort of stuff. And it was actually as much a social gathering as a weekender than it was a tactical, immersive experience, or however you want to sort of like, frame it.
Dan's got a question. I'm sure he knows this. Sure he knows the answer, but I think it's a good point to talk about. Would you take a roll mat, multi-mat, or a folding cot type bed? The answer is always it depends. But should we talk a bit more about sleep systems and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I've always gone with, I mean, my own personal limitations because I don't drive and never have. I've always had to travel fairly light until quite recently. So if it didn't go in a backpack, like I'd probably leave it at home. And I also hate setting up and breaking down camp beds. As much as it would be nice to have like one of those big folding cart beds that you just whack out and it turns into a chair and things like that, they are difficult to carry and they take up a hell of a lot of room. So I've always relied on like a self-inflating roll mat or something like that. But I've always taken at least that. Sleeping directly on the ground is really, really shit. It's not much fun whatsoever, and you have to become a particularly hardened individual to cope with doing that for 2 nights on the trot. Or if you have to do it for more, I don't know how people get it. It's probably why people start killing people quite easily. Once you've spent a few nights like sleeping directly on the floor, it would drive you into some sort of murderous rage. But always take just either if it's one of those old-fashioned rubbery roll mat things that you got from the surplus store, or if it's one of the all singing, all dancing firm arrest things that inflates itself. I mean, I'd probably be more inclined to go simple because it's not going to get popped. Those firm arrest things the inflating ones can get burst and things like that, and that will ruin your weekend as much as just sleeping directly on the floor if it gets popped. Personally, I've always kind of gone as compact as possible, and also because at the end of the weekend you usually just want to hoof all your crap into the back of the car and get home. So a roll up old-fashioned foam roll mats usually just about enough. It balances right between excessive, long, hard to pack up, etc., and also just about does enough to keep you comfortable. So yeah, kind of agree with you there, Tom. It depends. But definitely take one.
Some form of insulation from the ground. Personally, I use a Thermarest style insulated mattress, but that's inside a bivvy bag on top of a ground sheet. So there's 3-4 layers of protection between me and the ground. So I don't have a problem with it.
We did get quite enthusiastic at an event once at Anzio when camping on the big marshy bit at the top, and one of my friends, Alex, had his big fancy camp bed set up, and we all decided to jump on it and sit on there, and then he decided to try and push us all off, and it turned into like a big dog pile sort of thing, and then we realized that the feet had dug through the bottom of the tent, through the ground sheet in the tent, and the tent was now filling up with horrible marsh water because a small stream had formed underneath of it. So there are ups and downs for taking. Like,
I think if you've got the space, and you're not having, the other thing is, how far are you going to have to carry all of your stuff? Some events,
what's the fitness like as well?
Some events it's 100 meters, some events it's 50, some events it's 2 miles.
Yeah.
So really, that's humping a cart bed 2 miles, probably not very fun. Yeah. Then you might want to go for a lighter system, or just a folding camp bed, or a hammock if you're into hammock camping. Something I should want to investigate next year.
Yeah, I'd love to try a hammock, to be honest.
I'd roll out of them, and I would.
Or you'd stay rolled in it and just bungee yourself. Be like, Gadge, you coming for the game? No, I'm a cocoon now.
But definitely
I've tried all those systems there, guys. Like, so I used to be able to do the sleeping on the floor in a bivvy bag thing, and I've done that at events. And now at 45 with a damaged neck and a damaged back, I literally need one of those cots. And even then, I have a bad day the next day if I don't sleep well. So to me, it's the most comfort I can get away with, really.
Yeah. The old NATO style box frame stretchy things. What are they called? I don't know. The old folding camp bed kind of things.
Well, the ones that are real effort to put together because you have to stretch that bar out on them.
Yeah. I mean, you usually need to lie down after you've actually stretched that onto them, and then I do know a few people that have just hoofed them in skips at the end of days because they can't pull the bar off the bottom end of it. They are a bit of a pain in the arse, but they are remarkably comfortable, aren't they? Like, the tension in the sheet is actually really good.
Yeah, I think anything which gets you off the floor and gives you some insulation, super important, really. And it can cost you virtually nothing for an army surplus, big thick. Don't get the really shitty little thin ones. If you're going to use a roll mat, get a big thick, kind of 1/2-inch army surplus thick jobby. Not some terrible thing from Argos for festival camping, because they don't actually intend it. They don't actually expect you're going to sleep on it at all anyway. My current sleep system is on the channel. We've used it a couple of times. I used it at Descent. It was brilliant. I had 2 really good night's sleeps. I was really quite happy.
I had a terrible time.
I'd say it varies. So listening to me about my sleep system might not necessarily be right. I think one of the things you can do, and it's going to sound really daft, actually now lockdown's here again, sleep in the garden. Have a night out in the garden with your stuff. Does it work?
Test it out.
Does it work? In a safe environment. Don't start bivvying up, or we can talk about tents versus bivvies, but I'm not really. That's kind of probably a much longer discussion. But wherever you sit, there's a ton of stuff on YouTube about sleeping out at night. You can sleep military. You can sleep civilian. Right now, if you're doing a real kind of real meal, a full-on meal sim where you're sleeping in the field and you could be bumped at any point, you want to go light. So I think we could talk for hours about this kind of stuff, but I think it's one of those, pay attention to what the organisers are saying, and there's a ton of stuff on YouTube, and I think we'll probably do more on the channel about this kind of stuff because I find it quite interesting anyway. But test it. I think we're going to keep coming back to this, aren't we? Test it.
I mean, if you are going to test things, one thing that you will drastically become aware of very, very soon on is no matter how hard you think you are or how warm it might be during the day, you probably can't sleep the night through without a sleeping bag because it gets fucking cold. I am talking from experience here. I went to an event once and thought, I won't need a sleeping bag. I'll just take my Snuggie and my Thermarest. I won't need a sleeping bag because it takes up loads of room in my bag. How I regretted that 4 hours into just laying freezing cold, shivering in the middle of a tent on the floor. I don't know if it's if it's partially psychological or if it is fully because of the extra insulation, but take a sleeping bag. I don't care if the only sleeping bag you've got is a -40 Arctic Expedition one and it's the middle of summer. You can unzip it. You can just whack it over one leg and keep a little bit, just a little bit warmer, but never go without a sleeping bag because Jesus, 3 in.m. at any point in time, you will be chilly, especially if you've been active all day and you've just crashed out. Just always take a sleeping bag.
Well, also, if you run out of energy and you get yourself in a shit state, you can always just wrap yourself up for half an hour in your sleeping bag and just chill, have a hot chocolate and just chill out in your sleeping bag and stay nice and warm and get yourself back in it.
Oh, definitely. I did that at the last England versus Scotland. I actually was legging it. We had like a really good couple of hours of like fighting between buildings at Catterick, the Sterling game, England versus Scotland, a couple of years ago. And that's at the beginning of December. I was running across the grass field from the train tracks towards the big tower building, and I slipped down like a big drain hole where the cover had slipped off, and probably did pretty well not to break my shin, to be honest. Twatted my leg pretty hard, took a fair chunk of skin off of it, didn't stop and have a look at it at any point until we'd cooled down and slowed down. And by the time I'd cooled down and slowed down, I realised that I'd actually like quite hurt a fair bit, and it had actually knocked the wind out of me and kind of really damaged my morale. It was dark, it was going to be dark for another 14 hours or something, and I was starting to feel a little bit bummed out. So I was like, actually, I need to go pull myself together. Need to have a little bit of like snivel time. Went back to our camp, jumped in my sleeping bag, whacked on a brew, ate a few biscuits. Fortunately I had a bit of signal there, so watched a funny video on my phone, messaged my girlfriend. Felt a lot better after a couple of hours, and went back out. Strapped myself up again, went back out. If I hadn't have been able to go and get warm and comfort myself, I probably would have actually folded it in at that point. I've really hurt my leg. I'm going to go home. But I didn't. I went, got myself back together again, job done.
I think you touched on a good point there, Ben. So, I mean, most people have a great time at their weekender, but can be quite psychologically demanding as well as physically. And it's really easy to have a sense of humour failure. And it's really easy if your kit fails to go, last weekend I went to, that gun failure that I mentioned, and I thought, do you know what? I've really come for the night game element of it. And as I was putting my night vision on and just moving my nods down on my helmet, the mounting bracket sheared off. And it's a good quality one as well. It shouldn't have happened. And then I just I didn't lose it as such, but I just do you know what? Game over for me. I'm going to go and sleep. Because I can't take part in the night game with my night vision. My gun's broke, and I just felt I haven't brought redundancies, it's my own fault. But you've got to try and stay on top of it. And actually going back to my dispatcher, having a hot drink, listening to an audio book for a bit, chilled me out no end.
Let's be honest.
Taking out other people,
Yeah, we're talking about weekenders, and it's a mil sim for a reason. And I'm sure if certain people were listening to this and I said, "Oh, it's a mil sim," you can take the comforts. They'd probably be taking the piss, but it's a mil sim. You are just going to have fun. It's a simulation. You can tap out. It wouldn't be mil sim if you couldn't tap out. If you acknowledge you're tapping out, that's cool. You can't go, I had to tap out because I was having a terrible time. But that's the advantage. It's supposed to be an experience for you. You get home and digest, I tapped out because this happened and went wrong. That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely cool. There's no problem with it. If it's a weekender, and if you're having a shit time, it's a weekender for you. Just say, I'm having a bit of a crap time. I'm going to go and have a Jaffa cake and have a laugh in the tent for a bit. It's no skin off anybody else's nose, and they shouldn't take it out on you. There's a lot of bravado and a lot of big knobbing that goes on about Milsim events and weekenders. Oh, so-and-so only played and they went and got their head down. So they might have to drive the next day, or they might actually just be going to do this thing for fun, to unwind. I don't want to go to an event after a week of work and find myself more wound up on Monday morning than I did when I started. So, always bear in mind, it should be fun.
There, man. You made a good point about having to drive. So, driving to events now, my colleague Evo used to drive to nearly every event, and I never really kind of took in how much effort it was until Tom and I did Descent, and after having bad sleep for 2 nights and then trying to stay really alert and be a good driver on the motorway, it's just taxing, and a lot of people go there and they hammer themselves on Saturday physically. If there's a social, they quite often at night have a few beers. The Sunday's a bit of a write-off because everyone's staggering around with a hangover, and then hopefully well enough to drive by the end of it. But you do see some people, and you're like, do you know what? You probably need a good night's sleep before you go anywhere.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the reason I bring it up is because they kind of got this real macho vibe around Milsim events in recent years, where if you weren't hammering it all night long, you weren't even really playing, and you were wherever you're getting the piss taken out of you. But there's a lot more to it. Why go and do it and have fun. Don't bully people because they're not running themselves ragged. you're not in the military, you're going for a simulation event, and let's be honest, no one's ever going to fucking die, so it's not that much of a simulation anyway, so don't get too high and mighty about it.
I mean,
like you say about... Sorry, Tom, go on.
Sorry, Ben, there are some very hardcore events, but if you just know what you're... I think the point is, and we've touched on it already, is know what you're signing yourself up for. Mm-hmm. If the event talks about loads of really hardcore stuff, probably don't go there,
Yeah.
Go to something a bit more. But even if you are at a hardcore event and you need to tap out.
Yeah.
Nobody
is going to, I've been to some fairly tough events, and if you go to... Sorry, I'm not really having a good time. I've paid to come to here, and I really appreciate what you put into this event. It's got to me. It's got the best of me. I need to go and have a rest for a bit. They would much rather you say that. They say, yeah, go and help yourself to my brew kit, than you get in a strop and slate it, or you push yourself too hard and get injured. That's the worst case scenario for an events organizer. It's not somebody saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't go kicking doors in for 14 hours straight." It's make sure everybody's safe and happy. That's the most important thing.
Okay, so there was an interesting point you just made about, and we've kind of touched on it a couple of times, which is about fitness. And you just said being able to kick doors in for 14 hours straight is difficult. You need to be fit to be able to do that kind of activity for that length of time. I'm not at the moment. The last weekender I went to, Gadge and me both volunteered to effectively stay in the HQ all weekend, make tea and assist the commander, because we knew our limitations. We knew we weren't going to be able to be out on foot patrol all weekend. There were guys there who do fell running, and they were out on their feet the entire time, and they can handle that, and that's absolutely because they know their limitations.
Probably still strapped after 6 hours though.
Don't know. Andy Tough is pretty tough, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've got him.
But part of his enjoyment from that event was thrashing himself senseless, with 6 kilo plates on, and that's what he wanted out of it, and that's absolutely fine. So don't be intimidated by people that want to do that. People will turn up with an agenda, which is to absolutely thrash themselves. You don't need to turn up with that agenda. You can quite happily turn up with an agenda as long as you've discussed it previously with the organisers or your squad commander. And as you talked about earlier, Ben, the guy that turned up and made chili.
Yeah. What a great guy. He was the king of the fucking game. Everybody remembered his chili. I don't remember who shot who and who so-and-so or who stormed that building. I remember the dude that was spooning out chili. He was the Don.
But I think, if you want to get the most, if you want to run around all day, you need to be fit when you turn up. And again, that's something we can talk about. I can get some people on that know a lot more about it than I do. We can talk about fitness for airsoft. So if you want to know about that, let me know, and I'll pull some coaches in.
I mean, sorry to expand on that a little bit.
Go for it, Ben. No, absolutely.
Don't feel bad. Even if you play airsoft a lot, every couple of weekends, or you go and do weekender events once every month, that's going to make you a bit better. But it's not superhuman fitness training or anything like that. And unless you want to actually do fitness training, airsoft's probably not going to help you that much. So if you want to get fitter, you kind of have to do something on purpose. You have to actually do something to get fitter. Airsoft is not very good fitness training on the whole.
Yeah, you can't just burn 5 hours of hardcore activity once a week or 10 hours over a weekend and go, oh yeah, I'm going to stay trim and slim me.
Yeah, that's like me saying, I went for a run last Wednesday. I went for a run for really hard, really fast, so I don't have to do any exercise for the next fortnight. I'm just going to do one run, really hard run every fortnight, and expect to be fit. It's just not going to work that way. Don't feel bad about it, because it doesn't matter. We're not soldiers, and this is the whole point. You can get really, really carried away with it. You can call it a mil sim, you can call it an op, but at the end of the day, we're just going for fun. We're just going for fun to chill out.
Yep.
You'll also find that some people will mentally have had enough of airsoft after a certain time as well.
Mm.
Like, I love airsoft, don't get me wrong. I've been into it for 20 years. I wouldn't work in the industry if I didn't love it. But there are times when I've been going, oh, we're going to do this position, been playing army for 6 hours solid, where I just want to have a chat about Doctor Who with someone at the safe area, you know.
Yeah, man.
And I need to do that sometimes. I don't want to ruin someone else's immersion. But if I know someone else is into bushcraft, I can talk about bash just for a bit. And it just gives me a little bit of a switch off, so I can go back into the game with my energy levels up again, you know.
Yeah. There's no shame in saying, I've stopped having fun. I'm going to go and have a break for a bit, because we've got the freedom to do that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
It's stopped being fun. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea, and then I'll be out a bit. And I think, truth be told, most people would prefer people just to say, look, I'm not really having a great time. I'm going to go out of the game so you lot can continue having your immersive good time.
Yeah.
And I don't break it by passing out or something.
As an organizer, Ben, the worst things we ever saw were people who would get so into it and had exhausted themselves physically and mentally that when something didn't go their way, they start effing and blinding or kicking off or accusing the other team of cheating. It's like we always talk at open days and the 2 o'clock blues. 2 o'clock blues, when everyone's had their dinner and they're a bit tired, and all of a sudden that's when the cheating accusations come in. It's the same with weekenders. It's usually halfway through the Sunday, the Russians aren't taking their hits, or NATO have cheated on this objective. And actually, that hasn't happened at all. Yeah. Classic example being the last event me and Tom went to, there was one issue where both sides felt they were being overrun by the other side. And we heard it as being part of the Marshall Channel, that the Russians are going like, oh, we can't get out of our area because the NATO are on us every time we move. They're just on us, right? And NATO were going, we can't complete objectives. The Russians are everywhere. And the two guys were complaining of the same thing because their perspectives were so screwed in by day two.
Mm-hmm. There was also a kit thing, and it's probably I don't want to particularly dwell on the technology, but same event. Our NATO side thought the Russian side had 1 million thermal and Gen 3 night vision and all this sort of stuff, and the Russians thought we had a load of thermal and Gen 3 night vision and all this sort of stuff. And the reality was there was a couple of blokes with some good kit and a couple of blokes with some pretty average kit, and that was about it. And everyone else
they were probably having a kip at the time that everybody was complaining.
and the reality was nothing like. It's just that perception, isn't it? It's like, and I don't know enough about night vision to rattle on about it, but it's one of those things. The perception of the perception was not the reality. The reality, everyone on our NATO side thought everyone on the Russian side had Gen 3 night vision and thermal images, and vice versa. So it was, and it was not the case. 10% of the players had any gear whatsoever. It's just one of those things.
I guess taking it back to the gear side of thing that we were talking about, don't be ashamed to take something that you know will comfort you and will boost your morale at some point. Because I know after playing some long events, you get 12 hours in, and you probably played from sun up that day at least, or the way a lot of these events work, you play from midnight on the Friday, it gets light again, it starts getting through to when it's getting dark again the Saturday evening, and you're like, wow, it's dark, we've got a whole night to get through.
Yeah, I always take a book.
Yeah, and it's don't be ashamed to think like, because you need something to buoy you at that point. Like, I mean, buoy you, like lift your spirits, because it sounded a bit like I said bore you. That's all. You need something to lift your spirits, because it does get really, really kind of intense. Like the draw of, I could be down the pub with a few of my mates tonight. You look at you watch and you think, it's 7:30 on Saturday evening, and I'm cold in a field, and somebody's going to pop out of that bush over there and shoot me in the side of the head with a BB. I could be in the pub with my mates having a nice cold pint, and I'd go home and have a shower, and and it gets a little bit. It does get to you, doesn't it? You can, and unless you're conditioned to deal with it, it gets really demoralising.
It's hot chocolate for me.
Yeah, you think, oh fuck, I've got to get through, and there's going to be hours and hours of darkness before the sun comes up. And every event I've gone through, I've had this couple of hours at about the same sort of time that I've had a really hard time getting through, but I've got through it. And then by the time I've got through to Sunday morning, I thought, why the fuck was I thinking about quitting? This has become amazing. This is the best bit of the event now. And after doing a few of these events, did I really start to trust myself and think, it's going to get better. It's just a bit of a lull in my mood. I know there's a bit of a lull. I need to go and have a biscuit. I need to go and have a brew. I need to go and make a few jokes with a few of my mates on my team. and then we need to get back out and make some fun for ourselves.
Well, let's use that as an opportunity to segue into food, water, and hot drinks and all that kind of stuff. So sustenance, super important. And as you've just touched about, Ben, can completely change your weekend. And again, the pot chili guy,
Chili man.
So let's talk about food and water and fluids and all that kind of fluids. Food and water at weekend events.
Yeah. Firstly, take more than you think you need. I used to basically try and take one British Army ration pack with an extra meal for a whole weekend. It's never enough. Especially if you're on ration packs, because they're high calorie, but they're not high content, so you won't end up eating more than you think you would in day one. Yeah. I think really you need to take filling food that's got a lot of calories in it, because even if you're taking it easy, you are constantly on the move for 2 days at most events.
I think one of the things we're used to doing probably in civilian life is access to snacking quite a lot. And even if you're not playing airsoft constantly, you probably find yourself demoralised by the fact you can't have a nibble on something. Who misses? But you probably want something to fill your stomach, to taste nice. Probably because I don't smoke, I've always found that, like, when I go to these events, I've always found myself need a snack or something like that. If I took up smoking, I'd probably substitute that with cigarettes. But I've always found I've gone through quite a lot of food quite quickly. Like you say, Gadge, although there might be a vast amount of calories in those rat packs, you're not necessarily eating it for the calories.
It's not a lot of volume, so it tends
exactly.
to be quite heavily laden on fat to get the calories in, but there's not a lot of volume, so you don't. So you might have the calories in, but you don't feel satiated.
Yeah.
But I love ration packs. I don't know. I've just had this bizarre thing about, it's a bit of a hobby, is eating random nations ration packs. We filmed quite a lot of them. And you can absolutely take ration packs to an event. But I see a lot of people turning up with like a pack of Tesco's sausage rolls.
And a pot noodle.
Without any hot water.
Yeah.
Oh, shivers down my spine then. No, it's probably not going to keep you going that long. There's no variety in it. Imagine waking up first thing in the morning and what have I got to look forward to for breakfast? Coffee and a sausage roll. And it's not even a Greg's sausage roll. It's one of them horrible cardboard ones from a multi-pack.
Yeah. I mean, exactly that. I think having food that's like tasty, nutritious, and filling is good. But also, as we've just touched upon, it's the ability to cook it. You can eat ration packs cold. You can eat a lot of things like Cornish pasties, Ginsters, steak slices, whatever, cold. But there's a massive morale boost to getting a brew on, or to having like a nice hot curry, or even a pot noodle if it's hot. I mean, that hot food thing, you can't get past that really, especially if the weather's inclement or it's cold like it is at the moment. Having cold food while it's shitting it down on you and you're huddled under a poncho is absolutely demoralising.
I mean, if you're made of money, I would say get as many of those Cotswold dehydrated meals as you can fit in your bag. But like between £4 and £5 a pop, it gets to be quite an expensive hobby. There are like other options that you can take out with you. I mean, balancing like not being absolutely terrible for you and probably giving you the trots, and also balancing affordability and comfort eating. It can be difficult, and it depends on people's tastes and things. One thing I'd definitely say, and somebody has just popped it up, Martin, Jet Boil is the best thing I have brought.
Yep.
I would
absolutely
scratch that bit for winter airsofting. Jet Boil is the best thing I've ever bought.
Yep.
You can get clone jet boils now. Sorry, I just spat all over my screen then. Obviously thinking about jet boils and making some nice dried noodles. But you can get jet boils now, clone jet boils for £25, and that comes with the coffee press thing in it as well. £25 is an absolute bargain, just for something that will boil water in under 4 minutes. You can cook you can heat things in it. You can, boil an MRE and then boil whatever it is they're called. I don't even know what they're called anymore. Then use the water inside it to make a cup of coffee or something like that. Really, really efficient. They're not the smallest, most sort of lightweight, elite camping stove thing going, but they're also super versatile, very robust, easy to clean, easy to use. They're super straightforward. I would definitely recommend getting one of those. They've saved my skin and my morale so many times. I mean, you can even whack, and this is speaking from experience here, whack a couple of them together with the burner stove thing, and we actually made a hot plate at one event that we went to at the sandpit. Set up a bit out of an old panini press, got this hot plate red hot, and me and my mate Graham cooked steaks for a few people on it. that was pretty good.
Going back to food, Ben, Glenn's just mentioned chili. And I actually, when I did a lot of World War II and Vietnam type events, I used to take those tinned all day breakfasts and tin chilies, that sort of stuff, because actually they're not great for you, but they're better than a pot noodle. They're a bit heavy because they're in tins, but again, you can eat them cold if you have to, but they're easy to cook because if you punch holes in it, you can boil tins. You know.
I mean, there's you kind of look at it from the elite camping kind of angle and the glamping kind of angle, and if you look at it too much from the hardcore camping side of things, they say you shouldn't take this, you shouldn't take that. That's a complete write-off. Like survivalist side of things like that. Oh, don't take that because you won't be able to open it. Don't take that because it'll be inedible if it's heated and stuff. You know, being sensible, you probably are going to be able to heat or open a can. Somebody will have a can opener, especially if you take one yourself. You know, you got to kind of be balanced and rational about it. I would definitely recommend taking things that you like that are comforting more than things that are lightweight and massive, compact. Because push comes to shove, if you've lost all your kit in the woods or something like that, you're at an airsoft event, so you're always going to be able to say, "Oh shit, guys, sorry, I lost all my kit in the woods and a bear ate my dried noodles. Can I get a can opener so I can open this ravioli or something?" You know, you're not going to be that hard against the wall. Take things that are comforting more than anything else.
I think there's some really simple stuff, like you can literally take a big Tupperware pot full of tuna pasta salad for your first meal. You don't need to go on a hard routine and start eating cold rations. It just gets a bit silly. But I think you take stuff which is comforting, improves morale. If that's ration packs for you, that's great. If that's not ration packs for you, that's also great. Again, test it. Don't take a ration pack to your first weekender having never eaten a ration pack before, because you might absolutely fucking hate it. Yeah. Then you just
all the British ones taste of sage. That is overwhelming flavour.
Luckily, I really like sage, so it's brilliant.
And they're all orange.
Massive plug for the channel. Of course, there's a load of ration pack reviews up on AATV. Have a look, see what you think. Yeah. I like because I like the kind of eating a ration pack at a Milsim weekender, because it makes me feel more. The immersion is better for me. But have a look at our stuff. Don't buy an Italian one, whatever you do. They're absolutely fucking terrible.
I'm gonna sorry to add to that a little bit. I know we've been talking a lot of comforting food and things like that. I would probably add in a little bit of a caveat here, that do remember that you're going to be outside, away from the home ablutions that you might be used to. So don't eat something that's going to give you shits, and don't eat something that is going to stress, mess with your digestion or mess with your mood or anything like that. And I say mess with you. Ramming too much sugar in you or something like that is a great way to end up feeling really, really grim after a short while. So kind of try to balance what you eat, and where it's tempting to whack a load of hot sauce on something, the last thing you want to do is have it running straight through you, without being too crude. Kind of bear that in mind. If in doubt, kind of err on the sensible side, and you don't have to eat 19 chocolate bars and make yourself sick. You probably shouldn't have that many energy drinks and things. It's a big crime that I've seen in recent times.
Let's go into that. Well, let's go into drinks in general, because I think that's a.
I was actually going to add something about drinks, if that's all right, Tom.
Yeah.
One of the best things I ever bought, and I started doing it for LARP weekenders of all things, because at LARP weekenders there's a massive drinking kind of culture on the Friday and the Saturday, because obviously rubber swords are a bit safer than airsoft guns to have a hangover with. And I noticed after 1 or 2 weekends that everyone was just hanging in the morning for ages. So I started buying those little tubes of rehydration drinks. So you just drop one of these tablets inside, a pint of water or whatever. And even if you've got the worst hangover ever, you feel fine in an hour or two. And they're really good for airsoft events, because there's a bit of drinking sometimes at some events, but also you lose a lot of sweat and salt. and you do get dehydrated, and you don't even realise it most of the time when you're skirmishing, especially for a long time. So one of those in the morning and one of those halfway through the day, lifesavers. And they're about £2 or £3, I think.
Weekend airsoft events, there's going to be drinking. There's going to be drinking on the night before the game. There's going to be drinking on the night midway through. There's going to be drinking. Everybody likes a couple of beers, and that's part of the fun with a lot of weekend events. You get together with mates that you might not have seen for a long time. Have a few beers by all means. Probably don't. I know everyone's an adult, and I feel a bit condescending saying it, but kind of know your limits and don't ruin the next day for you. But I know a lot of people will, and I've known a lot of people that have done. I've been there before and put myself in a bit of a rough situation on the Sunday morning. It happens.
I've definitely got a bit too excited on the rum several times.
Oh yeah.
And then...
But by probably as bad, probably if not worse, is overuse of energy drinks.
Oh God.
Powering people up. Raging headache after about an hour after you've drunk 4 cans of Red Bull. Massive dehydration. Real big mood killer. Puts you in a real downer. And you find yourself not enjoying the game. You find yourself feeling aggressive towards other people, and it's just not conducive to a good time for you or the people around you. I would recommend really curbing energy drinks in general, not least because you get absolutely ripping heartburn before long.
But also, Ben, moderating your alcohol drinking. I'm going to sound like an old man here, and I love a beer too. But if you're going to do anything else enjoyable that costs you money, like if we're going to go to Alton Towers on the Sunday, I wouldn't go, hey, Ben, let's get roaring drunk the night before so we can go on all the rides with a hangover. You just wouldn't do it. But for some reason, when you know you've got a day's worth of airsoft the next day, you go, do you know what? Oh, I can drink till 4 a.m. I'll get 3 hours sleep. I'll be fine.
I think a lot of it is a lot of it is the social though, isn't it? For a lot of events. But if you're going to do that, go to an event which probably isn't going to have you up all night.
Yeah, it's just as an organizer, I know that quite often the Sunday could be just an exercise in making sure people who did want to get their 2 days worth got it, but so many people wouldn't even get up till midday.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair on your organisers, they're probably watching what's going on, and if they say the game's not starting until an hour after they said it was going to start on the Sunday, it's probably because they're reading the lay of the land and they're saying that everyone's fucking hanging. There's people going to be chundering in the morning brief if we go starting now. Let's let everybody sort themselves out. Be realistic.
Okay. So Glenn Rickwood, hi Glenn, brings up a really important point about water. Particularly if you go to an event without running water, which is generally most of them, or I wouldn't trust the water that's running anyway. I tend to bring way more than I think I need, and generally I always drink it anyway. So, what do you guys think?
I'm much the same. So, I'll take a couple of plastic bottles for sort of cooking water, washing water, etc. Then I take a 3-litre Camelback for each day, just for on the back of me water, so to speak. Because I know what I'm like. If I put it all in Camelbacks, it'll get drunk straight away. So I have to stash some of it away and make sure that that's day one water.
Where's he gone?
He's quiet.
He's gone quiet. You've gone very quiet, mate.
We can. Have you partially pulled the port out? Whilst Gadge is having a look at that, I'll say I completely agree with him, actually. I'm a criminal for not drinking enough water, I've got to be honest. I find myself going without it. But you're not in a survival situation, so you don't have to ration it out. So drink as much as you possibly can. Flush yourself through and you'll feel a hell of a lot better. You feel way more energetic. You feel way more mobile, and also you don't feel like utter shite on the Monday after the event. I've battled myself through a few times, and I felt okay. It's got to Monday, and I've realised quite how deeply dehydrated I was.
I don't think most people drink enough fluids. I've done a lot of triathlon coaching and racing, and on various levels in the past, and Gadge has now gone completely quiet.
Oh yeah, do your Beastie Boys rap.
Okay, I just had to tell you the headset's died on me for some reason. So
no, you're back, mate.
Cool. Okay, headset might died, I think.
Okay, I think we're kind of coming towards the end of our live stream. If you guys have got any questions, let us know. We'll start answering them. We're going to start wrapping up. We're not going to disappear straight away. Something I think we'll all probably enjoy is maybe talking about some mistakes that we've made in the past. and things we wish we'd taken, but we didn't. So
I'm glad you qualified that with an airsoft statement. I thought you were going to make us talk about mistakes we've made in general.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Virage Airsoft Sport Up. His team or his group got together with a sports nutritionist, and they had a little chat about what they were eating and what they were doing while they were taking part. And apparently, he was a bit like a bit appalled.
Mm.
Yeah,
it is pretty crazy. I mean, sorry, yeah, the checkmate fella on YouTube did actually say kit regarding restroom visits.
Okay, let's do that, because that's a good one, actually.
Definitely wanted to cover that one off. Sorry, we forgot about that. I did notice the comment and I was going to go into it, but we got distracted. Jesus Christ, never rely on there being toilet paper in any individual area at all. Always take your own. The stuff that's there is for emergencies. If you have to use it, it's because you forgot to take your own or ran out.
Wet wipes are great, to be honest, Ben, as well, because they're great for freshening up. Because there's nothing worse than being minging because you haven't been able to have a wash after 2 or 3 days of shitting in the woods.
Yeah, so baby wipes, absolutely. I always take baby wipes.
Can I tell you another good thing why wet wipes are great? And it's because they actually work when they're wet still. One thing, if you're going to take anything with all of your kit, dry bags, socks, underpants, toilet paper in a dry bag. They're
good
like
point.
£3 from outdoors shops, like canoe bags that fold over and clip together. I always keep like my phone if I'm not going to take it out with me, batteries, toilet paper, things like that, just in case.
Pants and socks, and your warm and dry kit.
Yeah. Even if you're set up under hardcover or something, some dickend is going to pour his like 4-gallon jug of water over somebody's bag at some point. And it will be your bag, and your stuff will get wet if you don't prepare for it. And the last thing you want to do is think, oh yeah, I'm going to go for a nice poop, and it's going to be a really nice, comforting experience. And you realise somebody's made toilet paper all soggy, and it ruins it for everything. So yeah, also, dry bags.
I mean, also, if you know there are going to be no toilets, take a folding shovel. As any soldier will know, called a shovel recce for a reason. What you don't want to be doing is going for scooting down, dropping your pants and squatting somewhere, and then someone running through it after a game, or deciding they're going to dive down for cover. That's going to ruin their weekend. Just be courteous. If you can't find somewhere hygienic and safe to do it that's an actual toilet, find a ditch or dig a hole and bury it.
I think so. Checkmate hasn't played before. Most places will generally have at least a portaloo.
Yeah.
There may well be, porcelain flush toilets. However, they're generally, I would bring everything you need to clean yourself off,
and a little bit extra,
whatever that means to you. Bring everything you need to clean yourself off, do your business, clean yourself off, and be hygienic. Bring it with you.
Yeah.
Because you cannot rely on the organizer. Well,
hand sanitizer is quite good as well.
Absolutely.
Antibacterial wet wipes, things like that are always a great move. And somebody always makes a mess of themselves, and I don't mean in a toilet sense, but like accidentally gets like a load of toffee MRE all over them or something, and it's really horrible trying to wash that off with like bottled water or anything. So like cleaning wipes, baby wipes, anything like that are always a real godsend, and will make you one of the most popular people in the camping area if you can produce a pack. I mean, it's a long time since I've been to an airsoft event that has said we don't have toilet facilities. I'm pretty sure it's like since airsoft became more and more commercially viable, it's become a thing that there is at least some sort of toilet facility. I mean, I've been in some rare old portaloos in my time, but it's better than nothing. In some cases, it's better than nothing. In other cases, I'd rather be in the middle of the town centre pooping in a fountain.
I think the water. Actually, I want to go back to the waterproofing thing because I think it's actually quite important. As you said, Ben, you can get canoe bags or dry bags from Go Outdoors or Ultimate Outdoors in the UK for next to no money.
I actually, when I fly anywhere, I always put my underpants and things like that in a canoe bag, just in case something gets popped and seeps on everyone's bag in the hold or something like that.
Well, you've seen enough baggage handlers in the rain with just shit. Yeah, so I think it's a really sensible point. Your really essential stuff. I mean, Gadge knows. He's seen my my completely anal kit packing with everything waterproofed in dry
How much
bags.
how much can you fit up there?
In a canoe bag, about 60 litres, mate.
Even if you can't use dry bags, just use plastic Ziploc bags or bin bags if you the minimum. And again, I was just going to mention very quickly, carry bin bags. Don't leave all your
Gash
crap.
back. Yeah, really good point.
Yeah. Don't leave all crap for the weekend all over that site. Because if 100 people do that, it ends up being a bomb site by weekend 3.
Yeah, that's the downside of MREs, isn't it? Really, is that they're not particularly sanitary to get rid of. And you what you take on, you generally have to take off on these milsim sites because they quite often don't have a skip on or anything like that because of the military nature of the sites and things. So yeah, if you have something you can hoof all your crap into and seal up, do it. And if not, just so you don't get old juice all over all your kit when you seal your bag up, or juice all over your car boot or anything like that.
Okay, Glenn has asked about a first aid kit. Do you guys take a first aid kit? I normally take a small one with a couple of plasters, tweezers, anti-bac gel, etc. I do. Mine's quite comprehensive. I've got my first aid qualified and bits and bobs. But yes, I always take a small first aid kit, and I've got a trauma kit as well, just in case.
I generally only take personal first aid stuff that I really know how to use, because although taking first aid equipment for other people is a great idea, I'm probably not going to make use of it, and I will do more harm than good.
I think it's a good point. Unless you're qualified and you've had training, it's probably not the greatest idea. There is another argument that someone else can use it on you if they are qualified.
Yeah, but these are events. And if you find yourself with a compound fracture of your leg or something like that, this is much more important than the game. So the game will be called off, and an ambulance will attend. It's not like you need to be patched up and dragged out of there under fire or anything.
However, Ben, I would say that I carry 2 first aid kits. One's in my bag, and that's like Tom's more comprehensive one. It has everything from plasters through to throat lozenges for a sore throat. And that sounds not really first aid, but it's everything to make my life comfier in one big British Army medical pouch.
It's only the same as taking some ibuprofen, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
The one on my belt kit is for actual Airsoft First Aid. So it's got things like tweezers, it's got a dressing in it, it's got eye wash saline. It's got things that I think, what are the common things that will happen in Airsoft? Someone's going to have a big cut or a gash off a tree. Someone's going to get a foreign object in their eye, or it needs washing down with whatever. And I've got the skills and the stuff to do the immediate first aid. And again, it's about training and what's the most likely thing to happen. There's no point carrying a full trauma kit around with you on every weekender. You don't need chest seals and 15 tourniquets, I don't think, because people aren't generally going to be getting holes popped through them. But actually, some plasters, and like a triangular bandage, a proper dressing, and some like antiseptic and some tweezers and some rubber gloves, so you're not handling someone's wound. Perfect. Have those on your belt. That's great.
Handling someone's wound. That's the out of context quote of the live stream.
Yeah, I mean, as Glenn says, it's for his use only. If he gets a blister or splinter or
That said, though, when it comes to carrying this kit and gear around with you, I know tourniquets are a hot subject when it comes to it. If you are going to carry it around, probably do get real serviceable ones, because if something did happen and somebody is trained to use a tourniquet or something like that, the last thing you want is it to be some plastic replica one where somebody goes to try and use it and it doesn't do the job. So if you're going to go to the effort of actually carrying it, you may as well carry legitimate equipment.
I guess if you're in a situation where you really need someone to apply a tourniquet to you,
you
probably want. It's very, very unlikely, but you probably want them to actually have a tournquet. But then don't go
morbid. But
don't go applying tourniquets if you don't know what you're doing. Which is I'm going to stress that big time.
Sorry, the checkmate fellow has mentioned, won't it be a bit of a hike to the potty? Generally it is, but generally it is understood and a gentlemanly agreement that immersion can be broken should somebody need to go and sort themselves out.
It can be quite a serious hike, in fact. Yeah.
If we back to food, if you eat ration packs, you're probably not going to need to do a serious.
Okay. Matt asks, what's the best place to find out about potential milsims for people who have skirmished and want to find out? If you, there is really no. Is there a centralised? There's not really.
There's been a few groups once in a while, but unfortunately, most of them just turned into kit sales and bitching about each other. It didn't really work off that. I would honestly say look into Sterling, Gunman. What is it? Is it Descent that do milsims as well?
That's Gunman.
There's probably a few more, but just look into some of the bigger names, and they will steer you right. They'll do intro milsims. As you get into it, you'll probably hear about more and more.
The more niche stuff,
more and more less mainstream things, and that sounds really, really.
But I think you're right. I think Ben. I think Sterling and Gunman are probably the two places really.
I'd say that.
And then you can, once you get more into it, you can be more niche from there. But I think that those two providers are safe.
Yeah.
You know,
like I said, Gadge said, no wonder you don't enjoy playing airsoft. But I was at quite a niche airsoft event at one point, and I didn't even fire a shot for 12 hours. There was no BBs shot from my gun for the first 12 hours of the event. And that sounds really boring to somebody that goes to walk-on days. I spent 2 walk-on days back to back without even firing a BB. But I went to it and I really, really enjoyed it because I knew what I was getting into. I knew why I was attending the event. Yep. I knew what I would get out of the event. I was actually fulfilling a role at the event by doing what I was doing, and not firing a shot was part of my role to play. But it's more of a role play kind of event than anything. I guess that's my kind of, all of this, what we've been talking about actually does have some practical application. I knew what I was getting into. I knew where I was going. I knew what kit I would need. I actually had enough stuff so somebody there had a really rough time during the evening. At one point, I think poor guy had a bit of a traumatic past, and something that happened at one point kind of triggered it for him, and he had a shit time, and it got the better of him. We ended up, managed to clear the room out for him, and I had plenty of stuff so I could comfort him, get him back onto a more sensible state of mind, and he managed to go on and enjoy the rest of the event after spending a couple of hours cooling down and cheering himself up a bit. Not to be flippant about it, but he got back into the game and remembered that he could enjoy himself, and because we were well equipped and we knew what we were expecting.
It sounds very like the Scout motto, doesn't it? Be prepared. But I think that's really what we've been talking about for the last 90 minutes is be prepared. Understand what you're getting into, understand your limitations, understand what you need to have a comfortable time for a weekend, and primarily understand also it's about enjoying yourself, and that's really important.
Probably one last point before we go, and a question. What do you always pick up at the last garage stop before you get to the site?
Personally,
you are.
Gadge batteries. I probably buy cigarettes. Yeah. I probably convince myself that I don't need to smoke that weekend, and then end up actually buying cigarettes anyway.
I always go and get a Kit Kat and another multi-pack of water bottles if there's enough room in the car.
Yeah, more water and fags. You'll be fine. Terrible message. Ignore what I just said. So I'd like to thank my guests for joining us again today. I normally ask where you can find them, but they're not really social media whores, so I won't worry about it too much.
Yeah, we're too old for that, aren't we? And we can't even go to the pub together anymore.
Well, actually, something I was going to bring up, and let's just bring it up right now, is we had a very awesome Airsoft Milsim experience weekender last weekend without playing any Airsoft and without spending the weekend doing it, because we went up to the local woods completely legally, and we had a lovely time, socially separated, under bashers with our kit, and we had a lovely drink and had a great time together. So to a certain extent, you don't even need to play Airsoft to have a great weekender, and you don't even need to spend the weekend doing it. We had a great time under our tarps in the weekend, socially just enjoying each other's company. And I think to me that's the most important thing about weekenders. But I'm 43 years old, so your opinions may differ.
No, that actually got me fired up to go and play Airsoft again, because I remembered one of the real positive aspects of it. it really pushed it back into the fore of my mind. And I'm a bit bummed out now that Airsoft is locked down. So yeah, that little bit of homeless simulation really did kind of buoy me up again. Actually,
Checkmate's just asked about privacy and facilities for ladies' sanitation needs. Limited. Generally, they try and have single-sex facilities, but it can be more limited than you might expect in just normal life. You might be on a training ground. There might be unisex toilets. There might be unisex portaloos. It's not going to be as lovely as going to a restaurant or to a. So expect things to be a bit rougher than you may be used to.
I mean, generally they'll say that gents should have a wee, so we say, in the woods, and only use the portaloos if you absolutely have to, so that women can go for a sit down.
Sitting down only, yeah.
Yeah, it's be prepared to rough it, and I know this is the same that I apply to everybody, regardless of sex. Take what you need for yourself. Take responsibility of that for yourself. Even though the organizer says they may lay it on, don't rely on them to put that into place. Always look at that as they will provide in an emergency. If you can take it yourself, take it. Sanitary bags and things like that. If you need to take your own stuff away with you, I would always just recommend packing things like that so you can be self-sufficient. It's not life or death, but if you can be self-sufficient, you are all good.
Ben, you touched on a very important thing before we close off there as well, is that take what you need, but also let the organisers know what you need if it's not normal. And most sensible organisers will ask if anyone's got a medical condition or any sort of thing. Always let them know when you book in. Don't do what that guy did and turn up with a potentially life-threatening condition and surprise the organiser with it. Because my friend had to spend most of the night running around trying to find a generator and petrol in the middle of Wales.
Yeah,
it's this guy be safe and happy,
Yeah, if you have perhaps unusual requirements, or I don't know what the best thing to say as a parallel. Basically, if you were going to go camping on a fairly sketchy campsite, what would you take for yourself?
I think it's about taking responsibility for your own needs. If you need a lot of privacy, then you might need to find ways of doing that yourself.
Yeah. Take a little pop-up tent or something like that, and away you go. If you're happy roughing it, you can rough it. People will generally be very respectful of that. I can't speak for everybody, but I've never actually seen an instance of people being disrespectful of other people's privacy, because most people have their own private things that they would rather not do in front of everybody else. But just take what you need, and look at everything that the organizer provides as a bonus, because it can be very difficult in this day and age for an event organizer to provide something for absolutely everybody that will attend. Don't look to catch them out. Try and work with them.
It can be as simple as being vegetarian. I mean, I know my partner's vegetarian, vegan occasionally, and I have to ring up even open days in advance now to check this thing she can eat, because just assuming there will be a vegetarian option, if they're putting catering on at the event, don't assume anything, check.
This is why I always take a beer with me wherever I go. I can't be assured that there's a licensed bar at these places, so I always just take my own.
Okay, so I think we're going to end the stream there. Thank you very much to Ben and Gadge for joining me. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us in the comments, and for all the viewers. All your comments have been absolutely brilliant, and I've really appreciated them. So most importantly, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys.